First presidential debate just moments away now. Donald Trump and Joe Biden will take the stage for 90 minutes.
How about now?
Topics on the table. The big question, will the candidates do anything tonight to change the course of this race? President Trump is behind right now, has been for months. And our statistics guru Nate Silver at 5:38.
There should be audio.
Joe Biden is
President Trump is behind right now, has been for months.
Chance of winning the White House. But there are 3 debates, 5 weeks to go, and President Trump has a history of shaking things up. Our chief White House correspondent John Carl is on the scene.
That's like what an astigmatism looks like.
Okay, sound? Okay. Alright, cool. This is my first time doing this in a while. Just fixing some stuff. I know that I can go wide like this. I thought I'd use my laptop and everything. But I guess I don't anymore. But welcome everyone to the chat.
I expect that is what he will try to do.
Yes, very excited for tonight.
Okay, John Carl, Mary Bruce, also in Cleveland,
Getting some
covering
stuff
the
happening in the
Biden
background,
campaign.
folks.
Joe
Please
Biden
bear
has
with
been
us.
here before as well, not at the top of the ticket, but he has had 2 vice presidential debates.
Let me watch my own.
When the Trump crew walked in, though, it felt like Twilight.
27th debate for the White House, but Joe Biden has
Twilight, by
never
the way.
faced an opponent before like Donald Trump. He says all
Anyway,
he has to do here tonight is tell the truth, but it is not
Bella
going to be
and
that
Edward
simple.
got
Joe
married,
Biden
like all the
knows that Donald
vampires
Trump is
looked
going
all
to make this
fancy and
personal.
everybody else
He's
was
going
just
to go
kind
on the
of
attack.
like, oh,
Joe
well,
Biden's goal
they're
and
all
his challenge
pretty.
here
I don't
tonight
know
is to try
why.
and rise above that, to not get dragged down into some brawl with the president. Biden will fight back if the president misconstrues his record
Uh-oh.
after his family.
Oh
But
my
don't
gosh.
expect Joe Biden to
Okay.
spend a lot of time here
Wait a minute.
fact-checking the president. Instead, he wants to speak
Let me go
directly
to the
American
Fox
people. He
channel,
wants
guys.
tonight to be about the issues
1
he's
second,
going to
because
use
I'm on
on
another
taxes,
stream.
on his business record, and
Gosh, listen to
especially in
this
the midst of
false
this pandemic,
confidence.
on healthcare, George.
And we saw Joe Biden release his tax returns today.
That's one of my homies right there. I'm just go to
He did,
Fox.
Joe Biden trying to get ahead,
Fox
trying
at?
to draw clear contrast, trying to
that
set the
Fox?
tone
On a
for the
scale
debate
of 1
to
to
come.
10,
He
how
did
much
release
do you
Stephen
his
Crowder.
numbers today for last year, drawing a sharp contrast.
Here we
with
go. Oh, shit. Really? Uh-oh.
Good evening from the Health Education Campus of Case Western Reserve University and the Cleveland Clinic. I'm Chris Wallace of Fox News, and I welcome you to the first of the 2020 presidential debates between President Donald J. Trump and former Vice President Joe Biden. This debate is sponsored by the Commission on Presidential Debates. The commission has designed the format, 6 roughly 15-minute segments, with 2-minute answers from each candidate to the first question, then open discussion for the rest of each segment. Both campaigns have agreed to these rules. For the record, I'd assure you, none of the questions has been shared with the commission or the 2 candidates. This debate is being conducted under health and safety protocols designed by the Cleveland Clinic, which is serving as the health security advisor to the commission for all 4 debates. As a precaution, both campaigns have agreed that candidates will not shake hands at the beginning of tonight's debate. The audience here in the hall has promised to remain silent. No cheers, no boos or other interruptions, so we, and more importantly you,
There's going to be some
can
boos.
focus on what the candidates have to say. No noise except right now, as we welcome the Republican nominee, President Trump, and the Democratic nominee, Vice President Biden.
Here we go, guys. Can y'all hear me or just the screen?
Going. Our first subject is the Supreme Court. President Trump, you nominated Amy Coney Barrett over the weekend to succeed the late Ruth Bader Ginsburg on the court. You say the Constitution is clear about your obligation and the Senate's to consider a nominee to the court. Vice President Biden, you say that this is an effort by the president and Republicans to jam through an appointment and what you call an abuse of power. My first question to both of you tonight, why are you right in the argument you make and your opponent wrong? And where do you think a Justice Barrett would take the court? President Trump, in this first segment, you go first, 2 minutes.
Thank you very much, Chris. I will tell you very simply, we won the election. Elections have consequences. We have the Senate, we have the White House, and we have a phenomenal nominee, respected by all, top academic, good in every way, In
Why do I
fact,
keep
some
cutting
of our
chat?
biggest
Sorry, guys.
endorsers are very liberal people from Notre Dame and
Wait a
other
minute.
places. So I think she's going
That's
to be
my chat right
fantastic. We
there.
have plenty of time.
Okay,
Even
where's...
if we did it after
Okay.
the election.
I'm just trying to look at my chat.
After the election, as you know. So I think that she will be outstanding. She's going to be as good as anybody that has served on that court. We really feel that. We have a professor at Notre Dame, highly respected by all, said she's the single greatest
Okay.
student he's ever had. He's been a professor for a
All
long
right,
time.
I
at
only
great
believe
school.
chat alone.
And we won the election, and therefore we have the right to choose her. And very few people knowingly would say otherwise. And by the way, the Democrats, they wouldn't even think about not doing it. If they had, the only difference is they try and do it faster. There's no way they would give it up. They had Merrick Garland, but the problem is they didn't have the election, so they were stopped. And probably that would happen in reverse also. Definitely would happen in reverse. So we won the election, and we have the right to do it, Chris.
President Trump, thank you. Same question to you, Vice President Biden. You have 2 minutes.
Well, first of all, thank you for doing this and looking
Thank
forward
you.
to this, Mr.
Thank
President.
you, Jim.
The American people have a right to have a say in who the Supreme Court nominee is. And that say occurs when they vote for a United States senators and when they vote for the President of the United States. They're not going to get that chance now because we're in the middle of an election already. The election has already started. Tens of thousands of people have already voted. And so the thing that should happen is we should wait. We should wait and see what the outcome of this election is. Because that's the only way the American people get to express their view is by who they elect as president and who they elect as vice president. Now, what's at stake here?
But that doesn't follow the
President's made it
Constitution,
clear
Biden.
He wants to
I mean,
get rid
Joe.
of the Affordable Care Act. He's been running on that, he ran on that, and he's been governing on that. He's in the Supreme Court right now trying to get rid of the Affordable Care Act, which will strip 20 million people from having insurance, health insurance now, if it goes into court. And the justice, and I have nothing, I'm not opposed to the justice. She seems like a very fine person. But she's written before she went on the bench, which is her right, that she thinks that the Affordable Care Act is not constitutional. The other thing is on the court, and if it's struck down, what happens? Women's rights are fundamentally changed. Once again, a woman could be held to pay more money because she has a pre-existing condition of pregnancy. They were able to charge a woman more for the same exact procedure a man gets. And that ended when we, in fact, passed the Affordable Care Act. And there's 100 million people who have pre-existing conditions, and they'll be taken away as well. Those pre-existing conditions, the insurance companies are going to love this. And so it's just not appropriate to do this before this election. If he wins the election and the Senate is Democrat or Republican, then he goes forward. If not, we should wait until February. All right.
There aren't 100 million people with pre-existing conditions. As far as the say is concerned, the people already had their say. Okay, Justice Ginsburg said very powerfully, very strongly, at some point, 10 years ago or so, she said a president and the Senate is elected for a period of time, but a president's elected for 4 years. We're not elected for 3 years. I'm not elected for 3 years. So we have the Senate, we have a president.
It's elected to the next
During
election.
that period of time, we have an opening. I'm not elected for 3 years. I'm elected for 4 years. And the
election-
100
No
million
shit,
people-
Trump.
Joe, the 100 million people is totally wrong. I don't know where you got that number. The bigger problem that you have is that you're going to extinguish 180 million people with their private health care that they're very
That's
happy
simply
with.
not true.
Well, you're simply going to socialist.
Go
You're
ahead.
going to socialist.
Uh-oh.
We're now into, gentlemen, we're
This
now
is-
into open discussion.
it's gonna get
Open
spicy.
discussion. Yes, I agree. Go ahead, Vice President
Number
Biden.
one, He knows that what
Oh,
I
man.
proposed. What I proposed is that we expand Obamacare and we increase
Obamacare don't work.
And one of the big debates we had with 23 of my colleagues trying to win the nomination that I won were saying that Biden wanted to allow people to have private insurance still. They can. They do. They will under my proposal.
It's not what you said,
But
and it's not what
that
your
is-
party has said.
that is simply
Your party
a lie.
doesn't say it. Your
That
party
is
wants to
simple.
go socialist
My
medicine.
party is
and
me.
socialist
right
healthcare.
now.
Here we
I
go.
am the
They're going to
Democratic
dominate
Party.
you, Joe. You know that.
I am the Democratic Party right now. The platform of the
Not according
Democratic
to
Party
Harris.
is what I, in fact, approved of. What I approved of. Now, here's the deal. The deal is that it's going to wipe out pre-existing conditions. And by the way, the 200,000 people that have died on his watch, how many of those have survived? Well, there's 7 million people that contracted COVID. What does it mean for them going
China
forward if you
brought
strike down
COVID
the Affordable Care Act?
here.
Joe, you've had 308,000 military people dying because you couldn't provide them proper health care in the military. So don't tell me
I'm
about
happy
this.
to talk about
And
this.
if you were here,
Look,
it
here's
wouldn't
the
be
deal.
200, it would be 2 million people because you were very late on the draw. You
Late
didn't
on
want
the
me to
draw.
ban China, which was heavily infected. You didn't want me to ban
All right, gentlemen,
Europe, which was heavily
Mr.
infected.
President,
You would have
Mr.
been much
President,
later, Joe.
It's gonna be
President,
spicy.
Mr.
It's getting
President,
2
spicy.
million people.
You're not
President,
Oh,
as a
man.
moderator, we are going to talk about COVID in the next segment, but go ahead.
Let me finish. The point is that the president also is opposed to Roe v. Wade. That's on the ballot as well in the court. And so that's also at stake right now. And so the election is already
You don't know it's on the
begun.
ballot. Why is it on the ballot?
Because
Why is
you
it on the
said
ballot? It's not on the ballot.
It's on the ballot in the
I
court.
don't think so.
In the court. Well,
There's nothing happening there.
Donald, would
And
you
you
just
don't
be quiet
know
for a
her view on Roe v. Wade. You
I
don't
don't
know her
know.
view.
Well, all right, let's talk. We got a lot to unpack here, gentlemen. We got a lot of time, so.
Yeah, got an hour and a
on
half.
healthcare, and then we'll come back to Roe v. Wade.
All right.
Mr. President, the Supreme Court will hear a case a week after the election in which the Trump administration, along with 18 state attorneys general, are seeking to overturn
That's right.
Obamacare, to end Obamacare. You have spent the last...
Because they want to give good health care.
If I may ask
Go
my
ahead.
question, sir.
Good health care.
Over the last 4 years, you have promised
Two old dogs.
to repeal and
I mean, two
replace
old hags
Obamacare,
arguing.
but you have never in the last 4 years come up with
Wow.
a plan, a comprehensive plan
Yes,
to
I have.
replace Obamacare.
Of course I have.
Well, I'll give
Got
you
rid
an
of the
opportunity. And when I
individual
finish, I'm going to
mandate.
give you an
Excuse me.
opportunity.
I got rid of the individual mandate, which was a
That
big
is not a
chunk of
comprehensive
That
plan.
is absolutely a big thing. That was
I-
the worst
I
part
didn't
of
ask
Obamacare.
Sir,
Chris,
you're
that was
debating
the
him,
worst
not
part of
me.
Obamacare.
Let me ask my
Well,
question.
I'll ask Joe.
I
The
know.
individual mandate was the most unpopular
Mr. Vice
aspect of
It is
Obamacare. I got
spicy.
rid of it.
I'd like
and
you
we
to,
will
Mr.
protect people
President,
with
I'm the
pre-existing
moderator of this
conditions.
debate, and I would like you
Trump,
to
just shut up and
ask
just
my
let him
question,
talk.
and then you can
Jesus.
answer.
Go ahead.
You, in the course of these 4 years, have never come up with a comprehensive plan to replace Obamacare, and just this last Thursday, you signed a largely symbolic executive order to protect people with pre-existing conditions 5 days before this debate. So my question, sir, is what is the Trump health care plan?
Well, first of all, I guess I'm debating you, not him, but that's okay. I'm not surprised. Let me just tell you something, that there's nothing symbolic. I'm cutting drug prices. I'm going with favored nations, which no president has the courage to do because you're
Can y'all
going
still
against
hear?
Big Pharma. Drug prices will be coming down 80 or 90%. You could have done it during your 47-year period.
I agree.
Nobody's
They
done
need
it.
to.
So
Trump.
we're cutting healthcare.
Trump
All
needs
of
to
the
try to be
things
more
that we've
professional
done,
with
it's
this.
not- I'll give you an example.
Just try.
Insulin. It was destroying families, destroying people because I'm getting it for so cheap. It's like water. You want to know the truth. So cheap. Take a look at all of the drugs what we're doing, prescription drug prices. We're going to allow our governors now to go to other countries to buy drugs because
When in
they
fact-
pay just a tiny
As I
fraction.
say,
of
this
what
is
we do.
open discussion.
No,
Let me
but
ask
this
you
is
about,
big-
you'll
this
be
is
happy,
big stuff.
sir, you'll be happy. I'm about to pick up on one of your points to ask the Vice President, which is he points out that you would like to add a public option to Obamacare, and
Yes.
the argument that he makes, and other Republicans make, is that that is going to end private insurance.
It is
and
not.
will. I
Sorry.
ask you the question. It will
Not what
end.
your party says, by the way.
It will end private insurance and create a government takeover of health care.
It does not. It's only for those people who are so poor they qualify for Medicaid. They can get that free in most states, except governors who want to deny people who are poor Medicaid. Anyone who qualifies for Medicare would, Medicaid would automatically be enrolled in the public option. The vast majority of the American people would still not be in that option. Number one.
Joe, you
Number
agreed
two.
with Bernie
Number-
Sanders'
I
far
did.
left on the manifesto,
With
we
you-
call it.
with
And that gives
manifesto.
you socialized medicine.
Look, hey,
you
I'm
saying
not
you
going
didn't
to listen
agree?
to him. The fact of the matter is, I beat Bernie Sanders.
Not by much.
I beat him a whole hell of a lot. I'm
Not
here,
by
I'm here
much.
standing facing you, old buddy.
Pocahontas would have left 2 days early. You would have lost every primary.
All he knows
Sorry,
is
guys.
For Tuesday. You got
Look,
very lucky.
here's the deal. I got very lucky. I'm going to get very lucky tonight as well. And tonight I'm going to
With
make
what?
sure, because
With what?
here's the deal. Here's the deal. The fact is that everything he's saying so far is simply a lie. I'm not here to call out his lies. Everybody knows he's a liar.
But you
I just
agree.
want to
Hey,
make
wait,
sure.
Joe, you're the
I want to make sure.
Graduated last in your class in the first in your class.
I want to make
Mr.
sure.
President, can you let him finish, sir?
He doesn't know how to do that. He has,
You'd be
you know,
surprised.
you pick
Be surprised.
the wrong guy. The
Supposed to be
wrong
a
guy, the
debate.
wrong
Quit
time.
arguing, man.
Agreed with
Here's the
Bernie
deal.
Sanders in the
The
manifesto.
whole idea.
Let him.
Disavowing.
There is no manifesto.
We're not gonna get anywhere with this.
Number two.
You just lost the left.
Number two.
You just lost the left. You agreed with Bernie Sanders on a plan.
Folks,
Absolutely
folks,
agreed
do you have
to.
any
And under that
idea
plan,
what
you
this
socialized,
clown's
they
doing?
call it
Mr.
Medicare
You
for
have any
President.
idea?
Socialized medicine.
Mr.
Well, I
President.
tell you what, he is not for any help for people needing health care. Because he in fact already has cost 10 million people their health care that they had from their employers because of his recession. Number one. Number two,
yeah.
there are 20 million people getting health care through Obamacare now that he wants to take it away. He won't ever look you in the eye and say that's what he wants to do. Take it away.
No, I want to give them
Number
better
three.
health care at a much lower price
But-
because
and by the way,
Obamacare
he doesn't
is
know
no
how.
good.
He doesn't know how
I've
to do
already
that.
fixed it.
He has never
I've
offered
already
a
fixed
plan.
it to an extent.
He has never
Obamacare,
done a
as you
single
might
thing.
know, but probably don't.
Gentlemen, you realize if you're both speaking at the
It's
same
no good,
time,
and it's too expensive.
let the president. Go ahead, sir.
Obamacare is no good. We made it better, and I had a choice to make very early on. We took away the individual mandate. We guarantee pre-existing conditions, but took away the individual mandate. Listen, this is the way it is. And that destroyed, that they shouldn't even call it Obamacare. Then I had a choice to make. Do I let my people run it really well or badly? If I run it badly, they'll probably blame him, but they'll blame me. But more importantly, I want to help people, okay? I said, you got to run it so well.
That's what he's
And I
built
just had a meeting with them. They said, the problem is no matter how well you run Obamacare,
Whoops.
it's a disaster. It's too expensive.
I got you.
Premiums
I
are
got
too
it.
high, and
That's
it
what his
doesn't work.
people- that's
So
what his people say.
we do want to get rid of it.
It's
Chris,
an
we
open-
want to get rid of it.
I
and
understand
get
it, sir,
something
but I have
that's
to. I
cheaper
have to
and
give you
better.
roughly equal time.
Good.
Please let the vice president talk.
Good.
He has no plan for health care.
Of course we do.
He sends out wishful thinking. He has executive orders that have no power. He hasn't lowered drug costs for anybody. He's been promising a health care plan since he got elected. He has not, like almost everything else he talks about. He does not have a plan. He doesn't have a plan. And the fact is, this
Oh,
man
you missed
doesn't
some
know what
toxic
he's
stuff.
talking about.
Welcome to the chat, by the way.
Final question for you.
Sorry, I'm kind of on
Mr.
another
Vice
stream as
President.
well. I'm a
If
moderator,
Senate
so I'm doing like several
Republicans-
things at
we were
once.
talking originally about the Supreme Court here. If Senate Republicans go ahead and confirm Justice Barrett, there has been talk about ending the filibuster or even packing the court, adding to the 9 justices there. You call this a distraction by the president, but in fact, it wasn't brought up by the president. It was brought up by some of your Democratic colleagues in the Congress. So my question
shots
to you is,
fired.
you have refused in the past to talk about it. Are you willing to tell the American people tonight whether or not you will support either ending the filibuster or packing the court?
Whatever position I take on that, that'll become the issue. The issue is the American people should speak. You should go out and vote. You're in voting now. Vote and let your senators know how
Are you gonna
strongly
pack
you
the
feel.
court?
Vote now.
gonna pack the
Make
court?
sure you, in fact, let
Trump,
people
shut up and
know
let him
that you're a
talk.
senator. I'm not going to answer the question
Why would
because,
you answer that
because
question?
the
You wanna
question
put a lot
is,
of
the
new
question
Supreme
is,
Court justices,
the
radical
question-
left.
Would you
Who is
shut
your,
up, man?
listen, who is on your list, Joe?
Oh my goodness.
Who's on your list?
This is toxic,
Gentlemen, I
man.
think
This is like two high school boys arguing.
I'm not going to give a list.
We
For
have
real.
ended this segment. We're going to move on to the second segment.
That was really a productive segment, wasn't it? Keep yapping, man.
The people understand, Jeff.
They sure
47 years you've done nothing. They understand.
Oh.
All right. The second subject is COVID-19, which is an awfully serious
Well, I mean,
subject.
he does got a point. Biden has not done
Let's be serious
anything.
about it. We have had more than 7 million cases of coronavirus in the United States, and more than 200,000 people have died. Even after we produce a vaccine, experts say that it could be months or even years before we come back to anything approaching normal. My question for both of you is, based on what you have said and done so far, and what you have said you would do starting in 2021, why should the American people trust you more than your opponent to deal with this public health crisis going forward? In this case, the question goes to you first, sir. 2 minutes uninterrupted.
Good luck. 200,000 dead. As you said, over 7 million infected in the United States. We, in fact, have 5%, 4% of the world's population, 20% of the deaths. 40,000 people a day are contracting COVID. In addition to that, about between 750 and 1,000 people a day are dying. When he was presented with that number, he said, it is what it is. Well, it is what it is because you are who you are. That's why it is. The president has no plan. He hasn't laid out anything. He knew crisis was. He knew it was a deadly disease. What did he do? He's on tape as acknowledging he knew it. He said he didn't tell us or give people a warning of it because he didn't want to panic the American people. You don't panic. He panicked. In addition to that, what did he do? He went in and we were insisting that the Chinese, the people we had on the ground in China should be able to go to Wuhan and determine for themselves how dangerous this was. He did not even ask Xi to do that. He told us what a great job Xi was doing. He said we owe him a debt of gratitude for being so transparent with us. And what did he do then? He then did nothing. He waited and waited and waited. He still doesn't have a plan.
Wrong.
I laid out
Sir,
back in
it's 2
March
minutes.
exactly
So
what we should be doing. And I laid out again in July what we should be doing. We should be providing all the protective gear possible. We should be providing the money.
Yo, what's up, Mike Stalker? Welcome to the chat.
To be able to go out and get people
This is
the
my
help
first
they need to
time,
keep
so
their businesses
I'm
open.
gonna mess up a
Open
few
schools
times,
cost a lot
so
of
bear
money.
with me.
You should get out of your bunker and get out of the sand
Everything's,
trap and
the
get
debate
in
has
your
been
golf
spicy
course
so
and go
far.
to the Oval Office and bring together the Democrats and Republicans and fund what needs to be done now to save lives.
So if we
Wait,
would have listened
Wait,
to
wait,
you,
you have 2 minutes, sir.
if we would have listened to you, the country would have been left wide open. Millions of people would have died, not 200,000, and one person is too much. It's China's fault. It should have
It
never
is China's
happened.
fault.
They stopped it from going in, but it was China's fault. And by the way, when you talk about numbers, you don't know how many people died in China. You don't know how many people died in Russia. You don't know how many people died in India. They don't exactly give you a straight down, just so you understand. But if you look at what we've done, I closed it, and you said he's xenophobic. He's a racist, and he's xenophobic because you didn't think I should have closed our country.
No,
Wait a
sir,
minute.
It says 2 minutes.
You didn't think we should have closed our country because you thought it was terrible. You wouldn't have closed it for another 2 months. By my doing it early, in fact, Dr. Fauci said President Trump saved thousands of lives. Many of you Democrat governors said President Trump did a phenomenal job. We worked with the governor. Oh, really? The governors said I did a phenomenal job. Most of them said that. In fact, people that gowns, the masks, we made the ventilators. You would weeks away from vaccine, doing when they get sick. Far fewer people are dying. We've done a great job. The only thing I haven't done a good job, and that's because of the fake news. No matter what you say to them, they give you bad press on it. It's just fake news. They give you good press, they give me bad press, because that's the way it is, unfortunately. But let me just tell you something. I don't care. I've gotten used to it. But I'll tell you, Joe, you'd never have done the job that we did. You don't have it in your blood. You could have never done that job.
I know how to do the job. I know how to get the job
Well, you
done.
didn't do very well in swine flu. H1N1, you were a disaster. Your own chief of staff said you were a disaster.
14,000 people died, not 200,000. There was
A
no
very-
economic
Sir,
recession.
you made a
There was
far
no
less
recession.
lethal
you made a point, but an answer.
And there was we didn't shut down the economy. This is his economy he's shut down. The reason it's shut down is because, look, you folks at home, how many of you got up this morning and had an empty chair at the kitchen table because someone died of COVID? How many of you were in a situation where you lost your mom or dad and you couldn't even speak to them? You had a nurse holding a phone up so you could, in fact, say goodbye.
You would have lost far
How
more
many
people.
people?
Far
That is-
more people.
And,
You would have been
and by the way,
months late.
your own,
You were months behind me,
his
Joe.
own CDC director says we could lose as many as another 200,000 people between now and the end of the year. And he held up, he said, if we just wear a mask, we can save half those numbers. Just a mask. And by the way, in terms of the whole notion of a vaccine, we're for a vaccine, but I don't trust him at all, nor do you. I know you don't. What we trust is a scientist.
You don't
we
trust
Dr.
Johnson
Fauci.
& Johnson, Pfizer?
And
Okay,
by the way,
gentlemen,
and
let me move on to questions about the future, because you both have touched on two of the questions I'm going to ask. Focusing on the future first, President Trump, you have repeatedly either contradicted or been at odds with some of your government's own top scientists. The week before last, the head of the Centers for Disease Control, Dr. Redfield, said it would be summer before the vaccine would become generally available to the public. You said that he was confused and mistaken. Those were your two words.
Yeah.
But Dr. Slaoui, the head of your Operation Warp Speed, has said exactly the same thing. Are they both wrong?
Well, I've spoken to the companies and we can have it a lot sooner. It's a very political thing because people like this would rather make it political than save lives. It is a very political thing. I've spoken to Pfizer. I've spoken to all of the people that you have to speak to. We have great Moderna, Johnson & Johnson, and others. They can go faster than that by a lot. Become very political because the left, or I don't know if I call
So
it
you're
left, I don't know
suggesting
what I
that the
call it.
head of your Operation Warp Speed, Dr. Slaoui?
I disagree with him. Yeah, no, I disagree with both of them. And he didn't say that. He said it could be there, but it could also be much sooner. I had him in my office 2 days ago.
He talked about the summer, sir, before it's generally available. Just like
He said
Dr.
it's a
Redfield.
possibility that we'll have the answer before November 1st. It could also be
When
after
it's
that.
generally available.
Well, we're going to deliver it right away. We have the military all set up logistically. They're all set up. We have our military that delivers soldiers, and they can do 200,000 a day. They're going to be
this is
delivering
the
the
same
vaccine.
man
It's
who
all
told
set
you
up.
by Easter this would be gone away. By the warm weather it'd be gone. Miraculous, like a miracle. By the way, maybe you can inject some bleach in your arm, and that would take care of it. This is the
That
same
was
man.
said sarcastically.
That
was-
you know that.
I
That
know.
was said
And
sarcastically.
so here's the deal. This man is talking about a vaccine. Every serious company is talking about maybe having a vaccine done by the end of the year. But the distribution of that vaccine will not occur until sometime beginning or the middle of next year.
Yeah,
to
I
get
do
it
agree
out.
on the
If we
federal
get the vaccine,
government
and pray God we will. Pray God
not
we will.
Mr. Vice
controlling
President, I want to pick up
You'll have the vaccine
I
sooner
want to
than
pick
that.
up on this question, though. You say the public
Yeah, if they
can
control the
trust
hospitals,
scientists,
then
but
they'll
they
be able
can't
to
trust
do what they
President
want.
Trump. In fact, you said that again tonight. Your running mate, Senator Harris, goes further, saying the public health experts, quote, will be muzzled, will be suppressed. Given the fact that polls already show that people are concerned about the vaccine and are reluctant to take it, are you and your running mate, Senator Harris, contributing to that fear?
No more than the question you just asked him. You pointed out. He puts pressure and disagrees with his own scientists.
But you're saying you can't,
Everybody
or
knows.
Senator
And-
Harris is saying
no.
you can't trust the scientists.
No, you can't trust him. She didn't say that. You can't trust
She
him.
said the
Oh,
public
come
health
on.
experts,
Said that.
quote, will be muzzled, will be suppressed.
Well, that's what he's going to try to do. But there's millions of scientists, there's thousands of scientists out there, like here at this great hospital, that don't work for him. Their job doesn't depend on him. That's not. They're the people.
If I had to mute everything before I did this,
That are in
By
charge.
the way,
because I'm screen sharing from my phone, so I should have muted everything.
In light of all
Sorry,
the
guys.
lies he's told you about the whole issue relating to COVID, he still hasn't even acknowledged that he knew this was happening, knew how dangerous it was going to be back in February, and he didn't even tell you. He's on record as saying it. He panicked, or he just looked at the stock market. One of the two, because guess what? A lot
Next
of
time I
people
go live,
die.
I know what to
A lot
do.
more are going to die unless he gets a lot smarter, a lot quicker.
Mr. President?
Did you use the word smart? So you said you went to Delaware State, but you forgot the name of your college. You didn't go to Delaware State. You graduated either the lowest or almost the lowest in your class. Don't ever use the word smart with me. Don't ever use that word.
Oh, give me a break.
Because you know what? There's nothing smart about you, Joe. 47 years you've done nothing.
Well, let's have this debate.
And if you would have had, let me just tell you something, Joe.
No,
If you would have had the charge of what I was put through, I had to close the greatest economy in the history of our country. And by the way, now it's being built again.
See,
and
he's
it's
We're going
going
to
up
get to the
fast.
economy in the next segment, sir.
Okay.
It's going up fast.
Okay.
Look forward to it.
When it comes to how the virus has been handled so far, the two of you have taken very different approaches, and this is going to affect how the virus is handled going forward by whichever of you ends up becoming the next president. I want to quickly go through several of those. Reopenings. Vice President Biden, you have been much more reluctant than President Trump about reopening the economy and schools. Why, sir?
Because he doesn't have a plan. If I were running, I know what the plan is. You've got to provide these businesses the ability to have the money to be able to reopen with the PPE as well as with the sanitation they need. You have to
Tell
provide
that
them
to Nancy
plastic.
Pelosi.
Well, he's just shush for a minute.
Tell it to Nancy
No,
Pelosi.
And
Schumer,
by the
Brian
way,
Chuck.
Nancy Pelosi and Schumer, they have a plan. He won't even meet with them. The Republicans won't meet with the
Okay.
Senate, and he sits on his golf course. And I mean,
Nah.
literally,
Okay.
think about it.
You probably
All right,
play
think
more than
about
I
it.
do, Joe.
What about this question of reopenings and the fact?
Well, he wants to shut down this country,
Oh.
and I want to keep it open. And we did a great
he just
thing by
admitted
shutting
he
it
shut
down.
it down.
Wait a minute,
Let
Joe.
him
Let me
finish,
shut
sir.
you down for a second, Joe, just for 1 second.
Oh my
We
God.
want to. He wants to shut down the country. We just went through it. We had to because we didn't know anything about the disease. Now we found that elderly people with heart problems and diabetes and different problems are very, very vulnerable. We learned a lot. Young children aren't. Even younger people aren't. We've learned a lot. But he wants to shut it down. More people will be hurt by continuing. If you look at Pennsylvania, if you look at certain states that have been shut down, they have Democrat governors all. One of the reasons they're shut down is because they want to keep it shut down until after the election.
All right,
November
I want to
3rd.
move on to another
Because
subject.
it's a
I want to move
political
on to another
I gotta
subject.
respond.
But those states,
gentlemen, I
those
want to move
states
on to
are
another
not
subject.
doing well that are shut down
But just
right
gotta
now.
respond to that.
President
Once they shut
Trump,
down the
you
whole
have
country.
begun to increasingly question the effectiveness of masks as a disease preventer.
Somebody.
And in fact, recently you have cited the issue of waiters touching their masks and touching plates. Are you questioning
No, I think
the
masks are
efficacy
okay.
of
You have to
masks?
understand, if you look, I mean, I have a mask
Right.
right here. I put a mask on it, when I think I need it. Tonight, as an example, everybody's had a test, and you've had social distancing and all of the things that you have to, but I
Just
wear
like your
masks
rally.
when
Well, it's
needed.
destroyed and
When
the virus
needed, I wear
affected,
masks.
but-
Okay, let me ask.
I don't have. I
Yeah.
don't wear masks like
If he
him.
would've
Every
kept the
time you
country
see him,
shut
he's got a mask.
down,
He could be speaking
more people
200
would be
feet away from
homeless,
it. He shows up with the
and
biggest mask I've ever seen.
it would just be
I
a
will say-
clusterfuck
I will say-
if he would have kept the
Biden, go ahead,
country
sir.
shut down.
Look, the way to open businesses is give them the wherewithal to be able to open. We provided money. The
But I was asking you, sir, about masks.
Well, masks make a big difference. His own head of the CDC said if we just wore masks between now, if everybody wore masks and social distance between now
People
and
don't
January,
social
we'd probably
distance,
save up to
Joe.
100,000
People don't even wear
lives.
masks. I see it all the
matters.
time I go out. No one takes it serious.
No serious person said the opposite.
People don't social
All right, I
distance
wanna ask you,
whatsoever,
Dr. Fauci said the
nor
opposite.
wear
We
masks.
got
So
a
the
very strong
half,
minute
like
left in this
half the
episode.
time, I
Not
see
good. Then
people
he
with
changed
masks
his mind. He
and
said
people
masks good.
without
I'm
masks.
okay with masks.
I
I'm
want to
not
ask you
fighting
both about
masks.
one last subject because
But the
your
social
different approaches
distancing,
even
no one
affected the
does
way
it.
that
Even
you
at
have
Walmart,
campaigned.
even at
President Trump, you're holding
everywhere I go, no
large
one
rallies
distance.
with crowds packed
Even I don't
together, thousands of
go
people.
like
Outside.
everywhere
Outside,
with
yes,
COVID
sir.
going on because I ain't trying to catch
Vice
it.
President Biden, you are holding much smaller events with
Nobody will show up.
people with.
What's
with-
true? Nobody shows up to his rallies.
All right. In any case, why you holding the big rallies? Why you not? Goes further.
Because people want to hear what I have to say. I mean,
But are you
I've
not
done
worried
a
about
great
it
job
spreading
as a
disease?
president, and I'll have 25,
No, you
35,000
got
people
big
show up.
crowds
at
because
airports.
a lot of people
Airports.
support
Are you not
you.
worried about
We
the
have a lot
disease
of
issues?
people.
You got bigger crowds than
So
Biden
far,
because
we have
a
had
lot more
no
people
problem
support
whatsoever.
Trump
It's
than
outside,
Joe
that's a big
Biden,
difference,
which
according to the
I can see why, but
experts.
you know,
And we do
I
them
already made a
outside. We have
video about
tremendous
that.
crowds, as you see. I mean, and literally on 24 hours notice. And Joe does the circles and has 3 people someplace.
Okay.
By the way, did you
This-
see
Judge, sir.
one of the last big rallies he had? And a reporter came up to him to ask him a question. He said, no, stand back. Put on your mask. Put on a mask. Have you been tested? I'm way far away from those
Yeah,
other
who
people.
knows where,
And that's what he
like,
said.
we know that
I
it came
can't.
from
I'm
China,
gonna be okay.
but
He's not worried
we
about
don't know if
you.
it came,
He's not worried
like,
about the
directly
people
out
out
of a
there
science
breathing one.
lab
We've had no
or,
negative effect.
you know,
No
through
negative
bats. Like,
effect.
no
We've
one
had
really
no negative
knows.
effect. And we've had 35, 40,000
All right,
people
you wanna-
at these rallies.
Just
Yes.
quickly finish up because I want to move on to our next.
Yes, I would. He's been totally irresponsible way in which he has handled.
Nobody cares.
Gentlemen, can we move on to the
Nobody cares.
gentlemen? Can we move on to the economy?
Yeah,
Yes.
move
The
on. Move on.
Is, I think it's fair to say, recovering faster than expected from the shutdown.
Much
This-
faster.
In the second quarter, the unemployment rate fell to 8.4% last month. The Federal Reserve says the hit to growth, which is going to be there, is not going to be nearly as big as they had expected. President, you say we are in a V-shaped recovery. Vice President, you say it's more of a K-shape. What difference does that mean to the American people in terms of the economy? President Trump, in this segment, you go first.
So we built the greatest economy in history. We closed it down because of the China plague. When the plague came in, we closed it down, which was very hard psychologically to do. He didn't think we should close it down, and he was wrong. And again, 2 million people would be dead now instead of still 204,000 people is too much. One person is too much. Should have never happened from China. But what happened is we closed it down, and now we're reopening, and we're doing record business. We had 10.4 million people in a 4-month period that we've put back into the workforce. That's a record the likes of which nobody's ever seen before. And he wants to close down he will shut it down again. He will destroy this country. You know, a lot of people between drugs and alcohol and depression, when you start shutting it down, you take a look at what's happening in
Oh,
some
yeah.
of your Democrat-run states.
Yeah, the
where they have these
crime went up,
shutdowns. And I'm telling
domestic
you, it's
violence
because
went
they
up.
don't want to open it. One of them
People
came
just
out
start
last
losing
week,
it
you saw
when
that.
everything was
They
shut
don't want to
down
open up
because
on
people
November
couldn't
9th.
go
November
anywhere.
9th, because it's after
If
the
you
election.
stuck in
They
a
think they're
house
hurting
and
us
you're not used to being
by
stuck in a
keeping them
house,
closed.
you're
They're
gonna
hurting people.
go cuckoo.
People
You
know
know?
what to do. They can social distance. They can wash their hands. They can wear masks. They can do
I
whatever
bet
they
they're
want.
gonna talk
But
about
they gotta
guns
open these
next.
states up.
I can't wait till they get to that one.
These governors are under
Guns.
siege.
Like, I can't wait.
Pennsylvania, Michigan, and a couple of others. You got to open these states up. It's not fair. You're talking about almost it's like being in prison. And you look at what's going on with divorce.
See?
Look at what's going
I
on
just said
with
that.
alcoholism and drugs. It's a very, very sad thing. And he'll close down the whole country. This guy will close down the whole country and destroy our country. Our country is coming back incredibly well, setting records as it does it. We don't need somebody to come in and say, let's shut it down.
All right, your 2 minutes, sir. We're now moved to you. As I said, posing the question, the president says it's a V-shaped recovery. You say it's a K-shaped recovery. What's the difference?
Yeah, the shutdown
Difference
does
is
cause more
Millionaires and
damage.
billionaires like him, in the middle of the COVID crisis, have done very well. Billionaires have made another $300 billion because of his profligate tax
Uh-oh.
and he only focused on the market. But you folks at home,
Uh-oh,
you
Biden's
folks living in
choking.
Scranton and Claymont and all the small towns and working class towns in America, how well are you doing? This guy paid a total of $750 in taxes.
Sir, wait, no, sir, it's
It's
just
the
two.
wrong
Yeah, I understand. You've agreed to the 2 minutes, so please let him have it.
Do I get my time back? The fact is that he has, in fact, worked on this in a way that he's going to be the first president of the United States to leave office having fewer jobs in his administration than when he became president. Fewer jobs than when he became president. First one in American history. Secondly, the people who have lost their jobs are those people who have been on the front lines, those people who have been saving our lives, those people who have been out there dying, people who've been putting themselves in the way to make sure that we could all try to make it. And the idea that he is insisting that we go forward and open when you have almost half the states in America with a significant increase in COVID deaths and COVID cases in the United States of America. And he wants to open it up more. Why does he want to open it up? Why doesn't he take care of the American? You can't fix the economy until you fix the COVID crisis. And he has no intention
The
of doing
COVID
anything
crisis
about
is not
making
as
it
big
better
as the
for
economy
you all at
whatsoever.
home in terms of your health and your safety. Schools. Why are schools open? Because it costs a lot of money to open them safely. You know, they were going to give, his administration was going to give the teachers and school students masks. And then they decided, no, couldn't do that because it's not a national emergency. Not a national emergency. They've done nothing to help small businesses. Nothing. They're closing. 1 in 6 is now gone. He ought to get on the job and take care of the needs of the American people so we can open safely.
All right, your time is up, sir. We are going to get to the...
I
we're
have
gonna-
to respond to that.
Well, you both had 2 minutes, sir.
Excuse me, he made a statement.
So did you.
People want their schools, no, people want their schools open. They don't want to be shut down. They don't want their state shut down. They want their restaurants. I look at New York, it's so sad what's happening in New York. It's almost like a ghost town. And I'm not sure it can ever recover what they've done in New York. People want their places open. They want to get back to their lives.
People-
They'll be
Exactly.
careful,
People
but they
lost
want their
businesses due
schools
to the
open.
shutdown,
I'm the one that brought
and
back
people
football.
became
By the way,
homeless
I
due
brought
to the
back
shutdown.
Big Ten football. It was me, and I'm very happy to do it. And
All right,
the people of Ohio are very proud of me. And you know
We're
how
going
I
to get
found
back,
out? When he took the
gentlemen,
phony
we're going to
ad.
get to your economic plans going forward in a moment. But first, Mr. President, as you well know, there's a new report that in 2016, the year you were elected president, and 2017, your first year as president, that you paid $750 a year in federal income tax each of those years.
Uh-oh.
I know that you pay a lot of other taxes, but I'm asking you the specific question. Is it true that you paid $750 in federal income taxes each of those 2 years?
I paid millions of dollars in taxes, millions of dollars of income tax. And let me just tell you, there was a story in one of the papers.
Show us your tax
I paid
returns.
$38 million 1 year. I paid $27 million
Show us your tax
1 year.
returns.
I went, you'll see it as soon as it's finished. You'll see it. You know, if you want to do, go to the Board of Elections. There's a 118-page or so report that says everything I have, every bank I have, I'm totally under leveraged because the assets are extremely good. And we have a very, I built
Sir,
a great
I'm asking you a
company.
specific question, which
But
is...
let me tell you.
I understand all of that.
Release your
I
tax
understand
return.
all of that.
But let me-
No, Mr. President,
Go ahead.
I'm asking you a question. Will you tell us how much you
Live
paid
stream
in
look
federal
like it's
income
buffering.
taxes in 2016 and 2017?
Millions of dollars.
You paid millions of dollars?
Millions of dollars.
So
yes.
not 750?
Millions of dollars, and you'll get to see it. And you'll get to
When?
see it.
How
But
did I
let me
mute
just-
my
First, let me
mic?
just tell you something. That it was the tax laws. I don't want to.
Yo,
pay
guys,
tax.
give me 1
Before I
second.
came here,
Respond.
Yeah, I do want to respond. Look, the tax code that made him, put him in a position
Sorry,
that he pays
guys.
less tax than a school teacher on the money a school teacher makes is because of him he says he's smart because he can take advantage of the tax code. And he does take advantage of the tax code. That's why I'm going to eliminate the Trump tax cuts. And I'm going to eliminate those tax
Okay.
cuts and make sure that we invest in the people who in fact need the help. People out there need help.
but why didn't
I
you do it
think-
over
No,
20, the
no,
last
no, wait,
25
no,
years?
but
Because
I
you
wanna-
weren't
why didn't
president.
you do it over
Because
the
you
last
weren't
25
president
years?
screwing
No.
things up.
You were a senator, and
You're
by
the
way,
worst
you were a
president
vice-
America has ever had.
Hey,
Come
Joe,
on.
let me just tell you, Joe. I've done more in 47 months. I've done more than you've done in 47 years, Joe. We've done things that you never even thought of doing,
Okay,
including
gentlemen.
fixing the broken military that you gave me,
Let's-
including taking care
we're
of your
talking,
vets.
Mr. President, we're talking about the economy. I'd like to ask you about your plans going forward because, Mr. Vice President, your economic plan, if you were to, there's a lot of big government, big taxes, big spending. I want to focus first on the taxes. You propose more than $4 trillion over a decade in new taxes on individuals making more than $400,000 a year and on corporations. President Trump says that that kind of an increase in taxes is going to hurt the economy as it's just coming out of a recession.
Well, just take a look at what is the analysis done by Wall Street firms. Points out that my economic plan would create 7 million more jobs than his in 4 years, number one. And number two,
Yeah, I don't know about
it would
that.
create an additional $1 trillion in economic growth because it would be about buying American. That we're going to make, this federal government spends $600 billion a year on everything from ships to steel to buildings and the like. And under my proposal, we're going to
Sis,
make sure
I did not do that.
every penny of that has
YouTube
to be
just
made
deleted your
by
message.
a company
But
in
respectfully,
America.
sir, I'm talking about taxes, not spending.
Oh, wait, no, you
By
did
the way,
that.
I'm going to
Okay.
eliminate a significant number of the tax. I'm going to make the corporate tax 28%. It shouldn't be 21%. You have 91 companies, in the Fortune 500 who don't pay a single penny in tax, making billions of dollars.
Why didn't you do it
Billions
before
of
when
dollars.
you were vice president
Because
with Obama?
Because you, in fact, passed that. That was
That's right.
your
I got
tax
it-
proposal.
I got it done. And you know what
Yeah,
happened?
you got it done.
Our economy boomed
And
like it's never
and
boomed.
the economy
Well,
is
Mr.
busted.
President,
Let me finish.
Mr. President, let me pick up on that. You would continue your free market approach, lower taxes, more deregulation, correct?
Not lower taxes for American people.
Let me.
Excuse me.
But in Obama's, you talk about the economy booming. It turns out that in Obama's final 3 years as president, more jobs were created, 1.5 million more jobs than in the first 3 years of your presidency.
They had the slowest recovery economic recovery since 1929. It was the slowest recovery. Also, they took over something that was down here. All you had to do is turn on the lights and you pick up a lot. But they had the slowest economic recovery since 1929. Let me tell you about the stock market. When the stock market goes up, that means jobs. It also means 401ks. If you got in, if you ever became president with your ideas, you want to terminate my taxes, I'll tell you what, you'll lose half of the companies that have poured in here will leave, and plenty
Half
of
of the
companies that are
companies-
already here, they'll leave for
hardly any
other places.
companies have
They will
poured in
leave,
here.
and you will have a
Have it.
depression, the likes of which you've never seen.
Look,
Mr.
we
Vice President.
inherited the worst recession short of a depression in American history. I was asked to bring it back. We were able to have an economic recovery that created the jobs you're talking about. We handed him a booming economy. He blew it.
It wasn't
He
booming.
blew it. He blew
It wasn't booming.
It was
It was the weakest
Well,
recovery
Well, sir, is it
since
fair to wait? Is it fair to say he blew it when, in
When
fact, there was
COVID came.
when there was record low unemployment
Yeah.
before COVID?
Yeah, but because what he did, even before COVID, manufacturing went in the hole. Manufacturing went in the hole.
Excuse
number
me,
one.
Chris, wait.
Number two.
Chris,
Number three.
They said it would take. No, you're on number two.
No.
Chris, they said it would
This
take a
guy-
miracle to bring back manufacturing. I brought back 700,000 jobs. They brought back nothing. They gave up on manufacturing.
We
Part
did
of
not
my
figure-
standard fare.
I'm the guy that
He
brought
totally
back
gave
the
up on
automobile
manufacturing.
All right, let him
industry. We brought back, I was asked to bring back Chrysler and General Motors. We brought them back right here in the state of Ohio and Michigan. He blew it. They're gone. He blew it. And in fact, they're going.
Ohio had the best year it's ever had last year. Michigan had the best year they've ever had.
That is not
Many
true.
car companies
Not
came in
true.
from Germany, from Japan, went to Michigan, went to
Mr.
Ohio.
They're not having.
And they
Mr.
didn't
Vice-
come in
wait,
with you.
Mr. Vice President, go ahead.
And so you take a look at what he's actually done. He's done very little. His trade deals are the same way. He talks about these great trade deals. You know, he talks about the art of the deal. China's perfected the art of the steal. We have a higher deficit with China now than we did before. We have the highest trade deficit
China
with
ate
Mexico.
your lunch.
All
Down
right, gentlemen,
18%.
in-
China ate your lunch, Joe. And no wonder your son goes in and he takes out billions of dollars. Takes out billions of dollars to manage. He makes millions of dollars. And also,
Simply
while
not
we're at
true.
it, why is
Simply
it,
not.
just out of curiosity, the mayor of Moscow's wife gave your son $3.5 million.
That's
What
not
did he
true.
do to deserve it?
That
What
is-
did he do with Burisma
None
to
of that-
deserve
Wait,
$183,000?
None
You've
of
asked
that
the
is
question,
true.
let him answer.
None of that is true.
Oh, really? He didn't
Totally,
get
But no,
$3.5 million?
Mr. President,
It's
Mr.
totally-
President, please.
totally
ask the question.
discredited. Totally discredited. And by the way,
Well, wait,
we're
he didn't
talking-
get
No, no.
$3.5 million, Joe?
Mr. Vice,
He got
Mr.
$3.5 million.
President,
that is not true.
Oh, really?
Mr.
Oh.
President,
But, Mr.
it's an open discussion, please.
No,
It's a fact.
Well,
There's- it
you
is
have
not a
raised an
fact.
issue. Let the
It's been
Vice
totally
President answer.
discredited.
Did
There was a
Burisma pay him
report.
$183,000 a month with no experience in energy?
Mr.
Look,
President,
my son did nothing wrong at Burisma.
I think he
and
did.
Mr.
the only
President,
guy that
let
did
him
something-
answer.
He doesn't want to let me answer because he knows I have the truth. His position has been totally, thoroughly discredited.
who?
And you're
The
correct.
media.
By everybody. Well, by the media, by our
That's true. The
allies,
media always be
by-
trying to
by-
shut Trump down.
By everyone has discredited. Matter of fact, even
Mr.
the
President,
people who
please stop.
testified under oath
So let
under
me ask you
oath.
this,
Henry,
Joe.
No,
under
no,
oath.
go ahead, Mister. I'm listening to you.
People under.
You got $3.5
He
million from
testified-
Moscow.
He testified under oath in his administration, said, I did my job and I did it very well.
Oh,
I
really?
did it
I'd like to know
honorably.
who they are.
Well, I'll give you the list
I'll
of the
fire
people who
them.
testified.
No, go ahead, sir.
Sure, you've already fired most of them because they did a good job.
Some people don't.
Well,
Wait a minute. You get the final word, Mister.
well, it's hard to get any word in with this clown. Excuse me, this.
Oh.
Hey,
this
let me
person.
just say, Joe.
No. Mr. President.
$3.5
Mr.
million,
President.
Joe.
That is simply.
Why did he
not true.
deserve $3.5 million
It
from
did-
Moscow?
Look, here's the deal. We want to talk about families and ethics. I don't want to do that. I mean, his family we could talk about all night. His family's
My
already.
family,
No, let him go.
my
I
family
already
lost
wrote
a fortune by
Go
coming down and helping
Go
us
ahead.
with
Go ahead,
government.
sir.
And that's
Every-
such a.
they're right
That's
here.
it, Mr.
That's
President.
such
Every
a great.
single one of them lost
This
a
is not
fortune
Mr.
about
President.
my
coming
family
and
or
helping
his
us with
family. It's
government.
about your family, the
didn't
American
put
people.
$3.5 million
He doesn't. That's not true. It doesn't want to talk about what you need. You, the American people. It's about you. That's what we're talking about.
you
here.
All right,
Not about here.
that's the end of the
Shouldn't
segment.
take the money.
We're moving on.
He didn't take them.
Well,
Vice
it's a
President,
very-
no.
Can I be honest? It's a very important
Try to be
question.
No,
honest.
I
He stood up.
No,
he stood up,
the answer to
and
the
he
question is
threatened
no.
Ukraine
No, sir.
with $1 billion
Sir,
if you
That
get rid
is
of the
you know what, you're-
absolutely not
Stop.
true.
tape doing it.
You're going to
Not
have
tape.
True.
Gentlemen. I hate to raise
Chris,
my voice, but
he's
it
on
seems
tape.
to be. Why should I be different than the two of you? So here's the
That's a
deal.
good point.
We have 6 segments. We have ended that segment. We're going to go to the next segment. In that segment, you each are going to have 2 uninterrupted moments. In those 2 uninterrupted minutes, Mr. President, you can say anything you want. I'm going to ask a question about race, but if you want to answer about something else, go ahead. But I think that the country would be better served if we allowed both people to speak with fewer interruptions. I'm appealing to you, sir, to do that.
Well, and him too.
Well, frankly, you've been doing more
Well,
interrupting
that's
than
all
he
right,
has.
but he does plenty.
Well, less than, sir, less
There's
than.
plenty.
No, less than you have. Let's please continue on. The issue of race. Vice President Biden, you say that President Trump's response to the violence in Charlottesville 3 years ago, when he talked about very fine people on both sides, was what directly led you to launch this run for president.
Oh, yeah, sure.
President Trump, you have often said that you believe you have done more for Black Americans than any president, with the possible exception of Abraham Lincoln. My question for the two of you is, why should voters trust you rather than your opponent to deal with the race issues facing this country over the next 4 years? Vice President Biden, you go first.
It's about equity and equality. It's about decency. It's about the Constitution. And we have never walked away from trying to require equity for everyone, equality for the whole of America. But we've never accomplished it. But we've never walked away from it like he has done. It is true. The reason I got in the race is when those people, close your eyes, remember what those people look like coming out of the fields carrying torches, their veins bulging, spewing, and just spewing anti-Semitic bile, and accompanied by the Ku Klux Klan. A young woman got killed. And they asked the president what he thought. He said there were very fine people on both sides. No president has ever said anything like that.
It is who's
Now,
who
second,
in it, sir.
second point I'd make to you is that when Floyd was killed, when Mr. Floyd was killed, there was a peaceful protest in front of the White House. What did he do? He came out of his bunker, had the military use tear gas on him so he could walk across to a church and hold up a Bible. And then what happened after that? The bishop of that very church said that it was a disgrace. The general who was with him said all he ever wants to do is divide people, not unite people at all. This is a president who has used everything as a dog whistle to try to generate racist hatred, racist division. This is a man who, in fact, you talk about helping African Americans. 1 in 1,000 African Americans has been killed because of the coronavirus. And if he doesn't do something quickly, by the end of the year, 1 in 500 will have been killed. 1 in 500 African Americans. This man is a savior of African Americans. This man cares at all. This man's done virtually nothing. Fact that you have to look at what he talks about. You have to look at what he did, and what he did has been disastrous for the African American community.
So,
President Trump, you have 2 minutes. Why should Americans trust you over your opponent to deal with
He
racism?
did a crime bill, 1994.
That's what I was going to
where
say.
you call them
Crime
super
bill.
predators, African Americans, super predators. And
That's
they've
what I was
never
going to
forgotten
say.
it. They've
Didn't
never
he do
forgotten
that
it,
crime
Joe.
bill?
No, sir, it's his 2 minutes.
So you did that, and they call you super predator, and I'm letting people out of jail now that you have treated the African American population community, you have treated the black community about as bad as anybody in this country. You did the 1990, and that's why, if you look at the polls, I'm doing better than any Republican has done in a long time, because they saw what you did. You call them super predators,
And
and
he's-
you've called
and he
them worse
did.
than that. Because you look back at your testimony over the years, you've called them a lot worse than that. As far as the church is concerned, and as far as the generals are concerned, we just got the support of 250 military leaders and generals, total support. Law enforcement, almost every law enforcement group in the United States. I have Florida, I have Texas, I have Ohio, I have Portland. The sheriff just came out today and he said, I support President Trump. I don't think you have any law enforcement. You can't even say the word law enforcement, because if you say those words, you're going to lose all of your radical left supporters. And why aren't you saying those words, Joe? Why don't you say the words law enforcement? Because you know what? If they called us in Portland, we would put out that fire in a half an hour, but they won't do it because they're run by radical left Democrats. If you look at Chicago, if you look at any place you want to look, Seattle, they heard we were coming in the following day and they put up their hands and we got back Seattle. Minneapolis, we got it back, Joe, because we believe in law and order, but you don't. The top 10 cities and just about the top 40 cities are run by Democrats and in many cases radical left. And they've got you wrapped around their finger, Joe, to a point where you don't want to say anything about law and order. And I'll tell you what, the people of this country want and demand law and order, and you're afraid to even say it.
All right. I want to return to the question of race.
Uh-oh.
Vice President Biden, after the grand jury in the Breonna Taylor case decided not to charge any of the police with homicide, you said it raises the question, quote, whether justice could be equally applied in America. Do you believe that there is a separate but unequal system of justice for blacks in this country?
Yes, there is. There's systemic injustice in this country, in education and work and in law enforcement and the way in which it's enforced. But look, the vast majority of police officers are good, decent, honorable men and women. They risk their lives every day to take care of us. But there are some bad apples. And when they occur, when they find them, they have to be sorted out. They have to be held accountable. They have to be held accountable. And what I'm going to do as President of the United States is call together an entire group of people at the White House, well, everything from the civil rights groups to the police officers, the police chiefs, and we're going to work this out. We're going to work this out so we change the way in which we have more transparency in when these things happen. These cops aren't happy to see what happened to George Floyd. These cops aren't happy to see what happened to Breonna Taylor. Most don't like it. But we have to have a system where people are held accountable. And by the way, violence in response is never appropriate. Never appropriate. Peaceful protest is. Violence is never appropriate.
All right.
What is peaceful protest? When they run through the middle of the town
President Trump,
and burn down your
President Trump,
stores and kill people all
President
over
Trump,
the place,
that
and you
is
say
not
peaceful
peaceful
protest?
President Trump,
No, it's
I'm not
not,
asking-
but you say it is.
President
did not
Trump, I'd
say
like to continue with the
Yes,
issue
go
of
ahead,
race. I
please.
promise we're going to get to the issue of law and order
Please.
in a moment. This month, your administration directed federal agencies to end racial
Why defund the
sensitivity
police,
training
Joe said.
that addresses
You're
white
the
privilege
Democrat
or
Party
critical
now,
race
beginning
theory.
of the debate.
Why did you decide to do that, to end racial sensitivity training? And do you believe that there is systemic racism in this country, sir?
I ended it because it's racist. I ended it because a lot of people were complaining that they were asked to do things that were absolutely insane, that it was a radical revolution that was taking place in our military, in our schools, all over the place, and you know it, and so does everybody
what
else.
is radical,
and he would know.
What is
Oh, it was
radical
totally
about
racist.
racial sensitivity training, sir?
If you were a certain person, you had no status in life. It was sort of a reversal. And if you look at the people, we were paying people hundreds of thousands of dollars to teach very bad ideas and frankly very sick ideas. And really, they were teaching people to hate our country. And I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to allow that to happen. We have to go back to the core values of this country. They were teaching people that our country is a horrible place, it's a racist place, and they were teaching people to hate our country. And I'm not going to allow that to happen.
Vice President Biden?
Nobody's doing that. He's
Oh,
the racist.
You just don't.
Here's the deal. I know a lot more about
You
this.
don't.
than he does.
Let him finish.
The fact is that there is racial insensitivity. People have to be made
The rice
aware
truly hurt
of
the,
what
the
other
Democrats.
people feel,
Yes, I agree
what-
100% on that.
what insults them, what is
Everything's been
demeaning
crazy.
to them.
People's been waking
It's
up,
important
and
that
it's
people know. They don't
people
want
that's been burning
many
our
people
cities
don't
is
wanna
mostly
hurt other people's
Antifa,
feelings.
Black
It
Lives
makes a
Matter,
big-
and
makes a big difference.
other
It makes a gigantic
groups.
difference in the way a child is able to grow up and have a sense of self-esteem. It's a little bit like how this guy and his friends look down on so many people. They look down their nose on people like Irish Catholics like me and grew up in Scranton. They look down on people who don't have money. They look down on people who are of a different faith. They look down on people who are a different color. In fact, we're all Americans. The only way we're going to bring this country together is bring everybody together. There's nothing we cannot do if we do it together. We can take this on and we can defeat racism
Vice
in America.
President Trump, sir.
During the Obama-Biden administration, there was tremendous division. There was hatred. You look at Ferguson. You go to many places. Look at Oakland. Look what happened in Oakland. Look what happened in Baltimore. Look what happened. Frankly, it was more violent than what I'm even seeing now.
Oh, my
But the
Lord.
reason
This
is
is
that
ridiculous.
the Democrats that run these
Absolutely
cities
ridiculous.
don't want to talk like you about law and order.
Violent
and you
crime.
still haven't mentioned.
Violent
Are you
crime.
in favor of law and order?
I'm in favor of law. You follow
Are you in
it and a little
favor
bit
of law and order? Go ahead,
Yes, I'm in
say it.
favor.
You asked a question, let him finish.
Law and order.
Loses
Law
left.
and order.
Let him answer.
Law and order with justice, where people get treated fairly. And the fact of the matter is, violent crime went down 17%, 15% in our administration.
All right.
It's gone up on his watch.
Went down much more in ours.
All right, we're down.
is President of
Mr.
the
President,
United
you're going
States
to.
of America.
We
Mr.
were
President,
breaking every
you're-
record in the
Mr.
book.
President, you're going to be very happy because
And the
we're now going to
places
talk about law and order.
Places we had trouble were Democratic-run cities.
That's
and
exactly
those
my question.
Democratic-
There has been a dramatic increase in homicides in America this summer, particularly.
There's
and
always
you
been a
often blame
damn
that on
increase in those
Democratic
cities.
Mayors and Democratic governors, but in fact, there have been equivalent spikes in Republican-led cities like Tulsa and Fort Worth. So the question is this really a party issue?
I think it's a party issue. You can bring in a couple of examples, but if you look at Chicago, what's going on in Chicago?
Go down,
where,
Leo.
53 people were shot and 8 died. Shot. If you look at New York, where it's going up like nobody's ever seen anything, the numbers are going up 100, 150, 200%. Crime. It is
cities.
crazy what's going on. And he doesn't want to say law and order because he can't, because he'll lose his radical left supporters. And once he does that, it's over with. But if he ever got to run this country and they ran it the way he would want to run it, we would have
We would
our
run it
suburbs
the
would
way-
be gone. By the way,
Suburbs.
our suburbs would be gone. And you would see problems like you've
He
never
wouldn't
seen.
know a suburb unless he took a wrong turn.
Oh, I know suburbs.
He would
so
not.
much
I was
better.
raised,
Go ahead,
Leo,
wait a minute.
lay
I was
down.
raised in the suburbs. This is not 1950.
Good boy.
All these dog whistles and racism don't work anymore.
People say cats don't
Suburbs are
listen.
by
Oh,
and
yes,
large
they do.
integrated. There's many people today driving their kids to soccer practice and/or to black
It's
and white and
understandable
Hispanic in the
to
same
a
car
degree.
as there have been any
One
time
night
in
of
the
anger and
past.
passion
What
is
really
human,
is a threat
sustained
to the
organized
suburbs
riots,
and their safety
and the
is
denial
his
of
failure to
allowing
deal with
federal
COVID.
officers
They're
for
dying in the
assistance
suburbs.
is
His failure to deal with the environment. They're being flooded.
act of
They're being
terrorism.
burned
Yeah,
out
I
because
agree.
his refusal to do anything. That's why the suburbs are in trouble.
I do want to talk about this issue of law
Burning
and order,
down
though,
stuff
and
is not
in the
protesting.
joint recommendation
That's why everyone's
that
arming
came
up,
from the
man. This is
Biden,
crazy.
Bernie Sanders task force, you talked about, quote, reimagining policing. First of all, what does reimagining policing mean, and do you support...
And police, yes, it's a lot of bad cops,
If I may
yes.
finish the question, what
But
does
there's also
reimagining
good
policing
police,
mean,
and we need
do
law
you
and
support
in
the
order,
Black Lives
or it would be
Matter,
flat out anarchy here in this country. That's just
call
common sense.
for,
We need police
for
reform.
community
We don't
control of
need to
policing?
defund the police. We need
What I support
better
is
police
having
training.
the opportunity to deal with the problems they face.
Yo, gotta
And I'm
run
not-
my
totally
dog out.
opposed to
Okay,
defunding
sis.
police officers.
I'll be here. We
Matter
probably
of
got like
fact,
another
police,
45
local
minutes
police.
left. of this debate. Thanks for tuning in.
For a $400 million cut in local law
Make sure y'all
enforcement
smack that like
assistance.
button.
They need more assistance. They need, when they show up for a 9/11 call, to have someone with them as a psychologist or psychiatrist to keep them from having to use force and be able to talk people down. We have to have community policing like we had before, where the officers get to know the people in the communities. That's when crime went down. It didn't go up, it went down. And so we have to be engaged.
That's not what they're talking about, Chris. That's not what they're talking. He's talking about defunding the police.
That is not true.
He doesn't have any law support. He has no law enforcement
That's not
support.
true.
Almost
That's
nothing.
look.
Oh, really? Who do you have? Name one group that supports you. Name one group that came out and supported you.
Come on,
Go
Biden.
ahead.
Look.
Think. We have time.
We don't have time to do anything.
No, think
All right.
about it.
All right,
Name one law enforcement group that came out and
I think,
supported
gentlemen, I think I'm going to take back the
There aren't.
moderator's
I don't
role,
think there are any.
and I want to get to another subject, which is the issue of protests in many cities. That
Yeah,
have
it has
turned
not been
violent.
protests,
In
it's
Portland,
been
Oregon,
rioting.
especially, we had more than 100 straight days of protests, which I think you were peaceful protests. Many of those turned into riots. Mr. Vice President, you say that people who commit crimes should be held accountable.
Yes.
The question I have, though, is as the Democratic nominee, and earlier tonight you said that you are the Democratic Party right now, have you ever called the Democratic mayor of Portland or the Democratic governor of Oregon and said, hey, you got to stop this, bring in the National Guard,
No,
do
he
whatever
has
it
not.
takes, but you stop the days and months of violence in Portland?
I don't hold public office now. I am a former vice president. I've made it clear in my public statements that the violence should be prosecuted. It should be prosecuted. And anyone who commits it.
But you've
should be
never called
prosecuted.
for the people,
never
the
said
leader. Excuse me, sir. You have never called for the leaders in Portland and in Oregon to bring in the National Guard and knock off 100 days of riots.
They can, in fact, take care of it out of the way.
They haven't been taking care of it, Joe.
But
The hell are you talking about? They can take care of it. They're not taking care of anything.
They shot him, and for 3 days,
President Trump,
They've been
President
killing
Trump-
people.
I had to send in
President-
the U.S. Marshals. They
President
took their business.
Go ahead, sir.
And by the way, his own former spokesperson said, riots and chaos and violence help his cause. That's what this is all about.
I don't know who said that.
I do.
Who?
I think Kellyanne Conway.
I don't think she said that.
She said that. And so here's
All right.
here's the point.
Go
The
ahead.
point is that that's what he is, keeps trying to rile everything up. He doesn't want to calm things down. Instead of going in and talking to people and saying, let's get everybody together, figure out how to deal with this. What's he do? He just pours gasoline in the fire constantly.
We'll make a
every
video
single solitary
Okay,
time.
and to
on this
end this,
after.
button up this segment, I'm going to give you a minute to answer, sir. You have repeatedly
Well, I
criticized.
have to answer his
No,
statement.
you have
His statement?
repeatedly.
Wait,
You have
just one
repeated. No,
second.
you've been talking
You
back
made
and
a
forth.
statement.
I'm asking you.
I would love to end it.
sir.
I would love to end it, and
You know,
we
if you
would
want to
very-
switch seats,
We would very quickly.
We can do that, but
I'd
I'm
send
no,
in the National Guard, it would be over. There'd be no problem.
Okay.
But they don't want to accept the National Guard.
You have repeatedly criticized the vice president for not specifically calling out Antifa and other left-wing
That's right.
extremist groups. But are you willing tonight to condemn white supremacists and militia groups and to say that they need to stand down and not add to the violence?
Militia groups hasn't been violent. They've just been there protecting businesses.
Are you
I'm willing
prepared
to
to
I'm
do
seeing
that.
a white
I would say
supremacy
almost everything I see
supremacy,
is
though.
from the left wing, not from the right wing.
So what are you
If
saying?
I'm willing to do anything I want to see.
Militia
peace.
groups
do
been
it, sir.
totally
Say it.
peaceful. What
Do
the
it.
hell
Say
he
it.
talking about?
You want to call them?
All it
What do you
is.
want to call them? Give me a name. Give me a
White
name. Go ahead.
supremacists and
What would
right
you like me to condemn?
white supremacists and right
Proud
militia.
Boys, stand back and stand by. But I'll tell you what. Somebody's got to do something about Antifa and the left, because this is not a right-wing problem.
His
This
own
is a left-wing.
FBI director
This
said,
is a
This
left.
is a left wing
no,
issue.
wait,
That's they're the only ones that's been burning down the cities and stuff.
That's what his
It's an idea.
FBI, his
Okay.
I've seen
FBI
these-
director
Gentlemen,
said.
Well,
we're
then
gonna,
you know what?
no,
He's
we're
wrong.
done. We're done, sir. We're moving on to the next. We're
When
moving.
a bat hits you over the head, that's
administration.
not an idea.
Everybody in
Antifa
your
is bad.
administration tells you the truth has a bad idea.
Can I tell you what?
You have no ideas that are
Antifa is a dangerous
All right,
radical
gentlemen, we're
group.
now moving on to the Trump
And
and
you ought to be
Biden
careful with
records.
them. They'll overthrow you.
When
in
a
2
president,
seconds.
I'm going to ask a question. When the president seeks a second term, it is generally a referendum on his record. But Vice President Biden, you like to quote one of your dad's sayings, which is, don't compare me to the Almighty, compare me to the alternative. And in this case, sir, you are the alternative. Looking at both of your records, I'm going to ask each of you, why should voters elect you president over your opponent? In this segment, President Trump, you go first, 2 minutes.
Because there has never been an administration or president who has done more than I've done in a period of 3.5 years. And that's despite the impeachment hoax. And you saw what happened today with Hillary Clinton, where it was a whole big con job. But despite going through all of these things, where I had to fight both flanks and behind me and above, there has never been an administration that's done what I've done. The greatest, before COVID came in, the greatest economy in history, lowest unemployment numbers. Everything was good. Everything was going. And by the way, there was unity going to happen. People were calling me for the first time in years. They were calling and they were saying, it's time maybe. And then what happened? We got hit, but now we're building it back up again. A rebuilding of the military, including Space Force.
Sadly,
and all
we
of
might
the
get
other
hit
things.
again with a second wave.
Fixing of the VA, which was a mess under him. 308,000 people died because they didn't have proper health care. He was a mess. And we now got a 91% approval rating at the VA, our vets. We take care of our vets. But we've rebuilt our military. The job that we've done, and I'll tell you something, some people say maybe the most important. By the end of the first term, I'll have approximately 300 federal judges and Court of Appeals judges, 300, and hopefully 3 great Supreme Court judges, justices. That is a record, the likes of which very few people, and you know one of the reasons I'll have so many judges? Because President Obama and him left me 128 judges to fill. When you leave office, you don't leave any judges. That's like, you just don't do that. They left 128 openings, and if I were a member of his party, because they have a little different philosophy, I'd say if you left us 128 openings, you can't be a good president, you can't be a good vice president. But I want to thank you because it gives us almost, it'll probably be above that number by the end of this term. 300 judges.
I'm sorry,
That's a
Trump's
record.
not just
Looking at both
wanting
your
to care
records,
for all
why
Americans.
should
It's
voters
literally
elect
been
you
proven
president
many
as
times
opposed to President
by
Trump? You have
himself.
2 minutes uninterrupted.
Under this president, we become weaker, sicker, poorer, more divided, and more violent. When I was vice president, we inherited a recession.
All right, Night Stalker. Thanks for tuning in, man. Appreciate it. Make sure you check out my next video that will be coming in a few days about this.
Gone head to head with Putin.
You have a nice night, man.
We're not going to take any of his stuff. He's Putin's puppy. He still refuses to even say anything to Putin about the bounty on the heads of American soldiers.
Your son got
And-
$300
safe.
million.
That's right. And by the way,
Mr.
my
President,
son.
wait a minute. Mr. President, your campaign agreed to both sides would get 2-minute answers uninterrupted. Well, your side agreed to it, and why don't you observe what your campaign agreed to as a ground rule, okay, sir?
He never keeps his word. Can you
No,
add back
No,
He's
I'm
a
not asking.
person that's
That
not
was a
yelling.
rhetorical question.
Can you
Go
add
ahead,
back
sir.
30 seconds?
Yeah, yes,
Okay.
you may have.
All right.
Go ahead.
So, thirdly, we're poor. The billionaires have gotten much more wealthy by a tune of over $300 to $400 billion more just since COVID. You in the home, you got less. You're in more trouble than you were before. In terms of being more violent, when we were in office, there were 15% less violence in America than there is today. He's president of the United States. It's on his watch. And with regard to
Trump
more
has been
divided,
interrupting.
the nation can't stay divided. We can't be this way. And speaking of my son, the way you talk
Biden
about
has
the
too, a little
military,
bit, but not
the
as
way
much
you
as
talk
Trump.
about them being losers and being and just being suckers. My son was in Iraq. He spent a year there. He got the Bronze Star. He got the Conspicuous Service Medal. He was not a loser. He was a patriot, and the people left behind there were heroes.
Really?
And I resent.
Are you talking
like
about
hell.
Hunter? Are you talking
I'm
about
talking
Hunter?
about my son, Bo Biden. You're talking about.
I don't know Bo. I know Hunter.
Yeah,
Hunter
you know
got
Bo.
thrown. Hunter got thrown out of the military. He was thrown out.
You're talking about
dishonorably
his kids
discharged.
now?
That's not
Oh,
true.
God.
Wasn't dishonorably.
Cocaine use, and he didn't have a job until you became vice
Damn.
president. And once you
None of
became
that
vice
is
president,
true.
he
Well, I
made a
mean, you gotta
fortune
know the
in
dirt.
Ukraine, in China, in Moscow,
That is simply
and various
not
other places.
true.
He
My
made a
son,
fortune.
my son,
And he didn't have a job.
my son, like a lot of people we know at
Joe,
home,
you can't.
had a drug problem. He's overtaken
Yeah.
it. He's fixed it. He's worked on it, and I'm proud
Well,
of him.
George,
Why was
sadly, this is all we got.
But he wasn't given
This is all we got.
That is totally.
And things need to change in this country.
We've already been through.
Totally discredited.
We've already been through this. I think the American people would rather hear about more substantial
So do I.
subjects. Well, you know, as the moderator, sir, I'm going to make a
I know, but when
judgment call
somebody
here.
gets $3.5 million
Okay, right.
from the
Let's
mayor
talk about-
of Moscow,
let's talk
That
about-
is
I
not
think
true.
it's a
Gentlemen,
terrible thing.
Talk about something else. Change subjects. Talk about.
Mitt Romney on that committee said it wasn't worth taxpayers' money, that report. It was written for political reasons.
You know, I'd like to talk about climate change.
So would I.
Okay.
Yeah,
The
talk about
forest
climate
fires in
change.
the West are raging now. They have burned millions of acres. They have displaced hundreds of thousands of people. When state officials there blame the fires on climate change,
We'll
Mr.
go lay
President
down.
said, I don't think the science knows. Over your 4 years, you have pulled
Sorry,
the
guys, my
U.S.
cat's
out of the
being a
Paris Climate
butthole.
Accord. You have rolled back a number of iron records. What do you believe about the science of climate change, and what will you do in the next 4 years to confront it?
I want crystal clean water and air. I want beautiful clean air. We have now the lowest carbon. If you look at our numbers right now, we are doing phenomenal.
Yeah, I know.
But I haven't destroyed our businesses. Our businesses aren't put out of commission.
I was paying
If
him,
you
but
look at
I
the
guess
Paris Accord, it
he
was
wants
a
some more
disaster from our
leaven.
standpoint. And people are
He's
actually
spoiled, but he
very
got
happy
fleas,
about
so I'm
what's
trying
going
not to
on, because our
get them
businesses
on
are
me
doing
like
well. As
that.
far as the
But
fires
I've
are
been treating
concerned,
him.
you need forest management in addition to everything else. The forest floors are loaded up with trees, dead trees that are years old, and they're like tinder, and leaves and everything else. You drop a cigarette in there, the whole forest burns down. You've got to have forest management.
What do you
You've got to have
believe?
cuts.
What do you believe about the science of climate change, sir?
We've been
I
having a lot
believe
of
that we
droughts.
have to
That's
do
why it's
everything we
easy
can
as hell to
have
start a fire.
immaculate air, immaculate water, and do
Because with
whatever
all this
else we can. That's
CO2
what we did with
and all this other
planting
crap
a million
that we're
trees,
pumping
the
into the
million tree
atmosphere.
project. And it's very
Do you
exciting
believe
for a lot
that,
of people.
that human pollution, greenhouse gas emissions contributes to
Yes,
the global warming
it
of the
does.
I think a
planet?
lot of things do, but I think to an extent, yes. I think to an extent, yes. But I also think we have to do better management.
Not to
of
no
our forests.
extent. It's
Every
yes, period,
year,
point
I
blank.
get the call.
We have.
California's burning. California's burning. If that was cleaned, if you had
Either we're
forest
gonna take this
management,
planet
good
out, or the
forest
planet's gonna
management,
take us
you
out.
wouldn't be getting those calls. You know, in Europe, they live their forest cities. They're called forest cities. They maintain their forests. They manage their forests. I was with the head of a major country. It's a forest city. He said, sir, we have trees that are far more, they ignite much easier than California. There shouldn't be that problem. I spoke with the governor about it. I'm getting along very well with the governor. But I said, you know, at some point, you can't every year have hundreds of thousands of acres of land just burned to the ground.
But, sir,
That's burning down because of a lack of
But,
management.
sir, if you believe in the science of climate change, why have you rolled back the Obama Clean Power Plan, which limited carbon emissions in power plants? Why have you relaxed?
Because it was driving energy prices through the sky.
Why have you relaxed fuel
Yeah,
economy
we need to focus on
standards
solar
that are gonna
power.
create more pollution from cars?
To be honest
Not
with you
really,
guys,
because
solar
what's
power.
happening is the car is much less expensive and it's a much safer car, and you're talking about a tiny difference. And then
Because
what would
these-
happen
these
because of the
electric
cost of
bills
the
are
car, you
high,
would have
man.
at least double and triple the number of cars purchased. We have the old slugs out there that are 10, 12 years old. If you did that, the car would be safer. It would be much cheaper by
But in the case of
$3,500.
California, they've simply
No,
ignored
but you would take a lot of
your
cars
rollback.
off the market because people would be able to afford a car. Now, and by the way, we're going to see how that turns out. But a lot of people agree with me, many people. The car has gotten so expensive because they have computers all over the place.
Yeah,
for an
cars
extra
are
little
expensive.
bit
Okay.
of gasoline. And,
That's not-
and I'm okay with electric cars too. I think I'm all for electric cars. I've given big incentives for electric cars. But what they've done in California is just
All right.
crazy.
Vice President Biden, I'd like you to respond to the president's climate change record, but I also want to ask you about a concern. You proposed $2 trillion in green jobs. You talk about new limits, not abolishing, but new limits on fracking, ending the use of fossil fuels to generate electricity by 2035, and zero net emission of greenhouse gases
I don't know
by
about that.
2050. The president says
George, to
a
be
lot of these
honest.
things would tank the economy and cost millions of jobs.
He's absolutely wrong, number one. Number two, if in fact, during our administration, the Recovery Act, I was in charge, able to bring down the cost of renewable energy to cheaper than or as cheap as coal and gas and oil. Nobody's going to build another coal-fired plant in America. No one's going to build another oil-fired plant in America.
Yeah, coal
They're
isn't
gonna move to
renewable.
renewable energy,
Oil
number
isn't
one.
renewable
Number
as
two,
well.
we're going to make sure that
Once
we
it's
are
gone,
able
it's
to take
gone.
the federal fleet
I
and
think
turn
we
it
learned
into a
this in
fleet
school.
that's run on their electric vehicles.
Same for
Making
fossil
sure we can do
fuels.
that, we're going to put 500,000 charging stations and all of the highways that we're going to be building in the future. We're going to build an economy that, in fact, is going to provide for the ability of us to take 4 million buildings and make sure that they, in fact, are weatherized in a way that, in fact, they'll emit significantly less gas and oil because the heat will not be going out. There's so many things that we can do now to create thousands and thousands of jobs. We can get to net zero in terms of energy production by 2035. Not only not costing people jobs, creating millions of good paying jobs, not $15 an hour, but prevailing wage, by having a new infrastructure that in fact is green. And the first thing I will do, I will rejoin the Paris Accord. I will join the Paris Accord because with us out of it, look what's happening. It's all falling apart. And talk about someone who has no relationship with foreign policy. Brazil, the rainforests of Brazil are being torn down, are being ripped down. More carbon is absorbed in that rainforest than every bit of carbon that's emitted in the United States. Instead of doing something about that, I would be gathering up and making sure we had the countries of the world coming up with $20 billion. Say, here's $20 billion. Stop tearing down the forest. And if you don't, then you're going to have significant economic consequences.
What about the argument that President Trump basically says that you have to balance environmental interests and economic interests, and he's drawn his line?
Well, he hadn't drawn a line. He still, for example, he wants to make sure that methane's not a problem. You can now emit more methane without it being a problem. Methane. This is a guy who says that you don't have to have mileage standards for automobiles that exist now. This is a guy who says that the fact is, it's all true. And here's the deal.
Talking about the Green New Deal, and it's not $2 billion or $20 billion, as you said. It's $100 trillion.
I'm talking about
where they want to rip down buildings
and
rebuild the building.
No,
it's the
that is
dumbest,
not-
most
that
ridiculous.
is not-
Where airplanes are out of business,
That's it.
where two-car systems are out, where they
Not
want to
true.
take out the cows too.
Not
That's not
true.
true either, right?
Not
This is
true.
a 100
Simply,
trillion.
look,
That's more money than our
is-
country could make in
that is
100
simply
years if we're
not
going
the case.
All right, let
It
me,
will destroy our
because
country.
I actually, wait a minute, sir. I actually have studied your plan, and it includes upgrading 4 million buildings, weatherizing 2 million homes over 4 years, building 1.5 million energy efficient homes. So the question becomes, the president is saying, I think some people who support the president would say that sounds like it's going to cost a lot of money and hurt the economy.
What it's going to do is going to create thousands and millions of jobs, good paying
100 trillion.
jobs.
Let him finish, sir.
He doesn't know how to do that.
$100 billion.
The fact is, it's going to create millions of good paying jobs, and these tax incentives for people to weatherize, which he wants to get rid of. It's going to make the economy much safer. Look how much we're paying now to deal with the hurricanes. By the way, he has an answer for hurricanes. He said maybe we should drop a nuclear weapon on them. They may.
I never said that.
That's
at all.
what he did say.
You made it up.
And here's the deal.
You make up a
we are going to be in a position where we can create hard, good jobs by making sure the environment is clean and we all are in better shape. We spend billions of dollars on floods, hurricanes, rising seas. We're in real trouble. Look what's happened just in the Midwest with these storms that wipe out entire sections and counties in Iowa. They didn't happen before. They're because of global warming. We make up 15% of the world's problem. But the rest of it, we got to get them to come along. That's why we have to get back into the Paris Accord.
All right, gentlemen.
Wait a minute, Chris. So why didn't he do it for 47 years? You were vice president. Why didn't you get the world? China sends Russia does, India does, they all do. It's supposed to be good. Anyway, he made a couple of statements. The Green New Deal is $100 trillion.
That is
not
not
20
my
billion.
plan.
That's
The Green
well,
New
you want to
Deal
rebuild every
is not
building.
my plan.
You want to rebuild
All right,
every
If he knew anything
wait a
about
minute.
if he
Gentlemen,
knew
He
anything
made a
about
statement
Gentlemen.
about the military. He said I said something about the military. He and his friends made it up, and then they went with it. I never said it.
Okay.
That is
What
not
he
true.
did
Sir,
is he
you're done in
said
this segment.
he called
Mr.
the
Vice-
military
Mr. Vice President,
stupid bastards.
I
and he
did
said
not
it on
say-
tape. He said
Mr.
stupid
Please,
bastards. He
not
said
sir.
it.
Stop.
I would never
I
say
would
that.
Play
Stop.
it. Play it.
Go ahead.
You're
Mr.
on
Vice
tape.
President
Uh,
answered his final question.
The final question is, I can't remember which of all his rantings.
I'm having a little
remember
trou-
much.
I'm having a little trouble myself, but and about the economy and about this question of what it's going to cost.
The economy.
I mean, the Green New Deal and the idea of what your environmental changes will do.
The Green New Deal will pay for itself as we move forward. You're not going to build plants that, in fact, are great polluting
So
plants.
do you
You're going to
support
build.
the Green New Deal?
Pardon me?
You support?
No, I don't support the Green
Oh,
New Deal.
you don't? Oh, well, that's a
You
big
let-
statement.
I
That
support
means you
the
just
plan.
lost the radical left.
I,
That's
su-
done.
I support
Oh, you
the
don't?
Biden plan that I put forward.
Okay.
The Biden plan, which is different than what he calls the radical Green New Deal.
All right, gentlemen. Election integrity. As we meet tonight, millions of Americans are receiving mail-in ballots or going to vote early.
I'm going to go vote. How about you guys? What are you guys going to do? Mail in or go in and vote?
To do over the next 5+ weeks, because it will not only be to election day, but also counting some ballots, mail-in ballots after election day. What are you prepared to do to reassure the American people that the next president will be the legitimate winner of this election in this final segment? Mr.
In
Vice President,
person?
you go
Okay,
first.
okay.
Prepared to let them vote. They should go to iwillvote.com. Decide how they're going to vote, when they're going to vote, what means by which they're going to vote. His own Homeland Security Director, and as well as the FBI Director, says there is no evidence at all that mail-in ballots are a source of being manipulated and cheating. They said that. The fact is that there are
Yeah, I'm gonna go
millions of
vote in
people
person.
because of
This,
COVID
yeah,
that are
I
gonna
don't
be
trust that
voting
mail-in
by
stuff.
mail-in ballots,
Uh-uh.
like he does, by the way.
Nope.
He
Maybe
sits
young,
behind
but
the
I'm
desk
not
and
dumb.
sends his ballot to Florida. Number one. Number two, we're going to make sure that those people who want to vote in person are able to vote because poll watchers are there to make sure they can socially distance. The polls are open on time, and the polls stay open until the votes are counted. And this is all about trying to dissuade people from voting because he's trying to scare people into thinking that it's not going to be legitimate. Show up and vote. You will determine the outcome of this election. Vote, vote, vote. If you're able to vote early in your state, vote early. If you're able to vote in person, vote in person. Vote whatever way is the best way for you, because he cannot stop you from being able to determine the outcome of this election. And in terms of whether or not, when the votes are counted, and they're all counted, that will be accepted. If I win, that will be accepted. If I lose, that'll be accepted. But by the way, if in fact he says he's not sure what he's going to accept, well, let me tell you something. It doesn't matter, because if we get the votes, it's going to be all over. He's going to go. He can't stay in power. It won't happen. It won't happen. So vote. Just make sure you understand you have it in your control to determine what this country is going to look like the next 4 years. Is it going to change? Or you get 4 more years of these lies.
Mr. President, 2 minutes.
So
Yeah, man.
when I listened to Joe talking about a transition, there's been no transition from when I won. I won that election. And if you look at crooked Hillary Clinton, if you look at all of the different people, there was no transition because they came after me trying to do a coup. They came after me spying on my campaign. They started from the day I won and even before I won, from the day I came down the escalator with our First Lady. They were a disaster. They were a disgrace to our country. And we've caught them. We've caught them all. We've got it all on tape. We've caught them all. And by the way, you gave the idea for the Logan Act against General Flynn. You better take a look at that because we caught you in a sense. And President Obama was sitting in the office. He knew about it too. So don't tell me about a free transition. As far as the ballots are concerned, it's a disaster. A solicited ballot, okay, solicited is okay. You're soliciting, you're asking, they send it back, you send it back. I did that. If you have an unsolicited, they're sending millions of ballots all over the
Did you
country.
see all
There's
the?
fraud.
Wait,
They found
did
them
you
in
all see the
creeks. They
project?
found some with the name Trump.
Video
Just
on
happened to
that.
have the name Trump.
Oh yeah,
Just the other
I
day
saw
in a
that
waste
on
paper
the Next
basket.
News
They're
Network.
being sent all
Yeah,
over the
she's
place.
screwed.
They sent 2 in a Democrat area. They sent out 1,000 ballots. Everybody got 2 ballots. This is going to be a fraud like you've never seen. The other thing, it's nice on November 3rd, you're watching and you see who won the election. And I think we're going to do well because people are really happy with the job we've done. But you know what? We won't know. We might not know for months because these ballots are going to be all over. Take a look at what happened in Manhattan. Take a look at what happened in New Jersey. Take a look at what happened in Virginia and other places. By the way, it's too much. An election could be won or lost with that. They're losing 30 and 40%. It's a fraud and it's a shame. And can you imagine where they say you have to have your ballot in by November 10th? November 10th. That means that's 7 days after the election.
Sir,
All run by
2 minutes
Democrats.
is 2 minutes.
All run by Democrats. It's
President
a
Trump.
It's a rigged
I-
it back and you're sending. They have mailmen with lots of it. Did you see what's going on? Take a look at West Virginia. Mailmen selling the ballots. They're being sold. They're being dumped in rivers. This is a horrible thing
Can
for
you
our
hear me now,
country.
guys?
This is not.
I had a
this
phone
is
call,
not
guys.
going to end well.
Sorry.
Okay.
This is not going to
I'm
end
trying to learn how to
Five
mute
states
just
have
me
mail-in ballots
instead of the
for
whole
last
thing.
decade or more. 5, including 2 Republican states. And you don't have to
I don't know how to
solicit the
do
ballot.
it.
It's sent to you.
I guess it doesn't
It's
work
sent to
that
your
way.
home. What we're saying is, they're saying is that it has to be a postmark by the time, by election day. If it doesn't get in till the
I may
7th, 8th, 9th,
have another
it still
phone call,
should
too.
be counted. He's just afraid of counting the votes because
You're
he knows
wrong.
the outcome.
You're
No,
wrong.
I want to continue with you on
I
this,
love that.
Vice President Biden.
Chris, he's so wrong when he makes a statement
no,
like that.
excuse me. Vice President Biden, the biggest problem, in fact, over the years with mail-in voting has not been fraud historically. It has been that sizable numbers, sometimes hundreds of thousands of ballots are thrown out because they have not been properly filled out or there is some other irregularity or they missed the deadline. So the question I have is, are you concerned that the Supreme
Yeah,
Court
I'm
with the
using my
Justice
phone.
ballot will settle any dispute?
I'm concerned that any court would settle this because here's the deal. When you get a ballot and you fill it out, not dotting the correct I. Who they voted for, testify, say who they voted for, say it's you, that is totally legitimate.
All right.
Excuse me,
No,
Chris,
no, no.
when you
I
have
have a final.
80 million ballots,
Gentlemen, I have a final
Senate
question.
is swamping the system.
You
know it can't be done. You know it can't. And already
All right.
there's been
So now,
fraud,
mail
deception,
service
final,
delivers
wait a minute, gentlemen. And the
185
final
million
question
pieces of mail a
is:
day.
in 8
ballots.
states, we can keep talking. In 8
it's
states,
disgrace.
election workers are prohibited, currently by law, 8 states, from even beginning to process ballots, even take them out of the envelopes and
Yes.
flatten them until election day. That means that it's likely, because there's going to be a huge increase in mail-in balloting, that we are not going to know on election night who the winner is, that it could be days, it could be weeks,
Could be months.
until we find out who the new president is. So first for you, sir, finally for the vice president, I hope neither of you will interrupt the other. Will you urge your supporters to stay calm during this extended period, not to engage in any civil unrest, and will you pledge tonight that you will not declare victory until the election has been independently certified?
They were thrown out. They weren't allowed to watch. You know why? Because bad things happen in Philadelphia. Bad things. And I am urging my people. I hope it's going to be a fair election. If it's a fair
You're urging
election,
them what?
I am 100% on board. But if I see tens of thousands of ballots being manipulated, I can't go along with that. And I'll tell you
what
what,
does that
from
mean,
a
not go
common
along?
sense,
Does that mean
I'll
you're
tell
gonna
you what
tell your
it means.
people to take to the
It means you
street?
have a fraudulent election. You're
And what
sending
are you
out
gonna do?
80
And
million
what would we
ballots.
do about that?
They're not equipped to. These people aren't equipped to handle it. Number one. Number two,
Okay.
they cheat. They cheat. Hey, they found ballots in a waste paper basket 3 days ago, and they all had the name
All right.
military ballots. They were military. They all had the name Trump on them.
Vice President
think
Biden,
that's good?
Vice President Biden, final question for you. Will you urge your supporters to stay calm while the vote is counted, and will you pledge not to declare victory until the election?
Honest
Okay.
ballot.
Gentlemen, you say that's the end of it? This is the end of this debate? Will be 1 week from tomorrow, October 7th, at the University of Utah.
Alright, guys. Well,
in
guess
Salt
this
Lake
is over
City,
with
the two
here.
vice presidential nominees, Vice President Mike Pence and Senator
I'm gonna
Kamala
go live
Harris,
for that one as
will
well.
debate at 9 p.m. Eastern that night. We hope you watch. Until then, thank you and good night.
Alright, guys. Well, I'm glad, hope you guys enjoyed that dramatic debate. So, yeah, stay tuned for my next videos and whatnot. So, give me a like, thumbs up. So, I hope you guys stay safe, wherever your surroundings. And as always, have a nice day.